Greetings, citizens. Hey, beautiful, creepy human being you, and welcome to today's true crime episode. I'm so happy that you are here. I'm so happy that somehow in all of this that we're forced to deal with on the day-to-day, today you and I were able to find each other on this crazy little planet that we call home. My name is Brittany or Bratterstein, whichever you prefer, and today we're going to be discussing 19-year-old Serena McKay, the girl who was beat to death by two teenagers, all while people stood by, recorded the attack, and posted it to social media. But before we get started, if you have not yet had the pleasure, please make sure to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell. I put out a new video every single week, sometimes 2 a week, and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you specifically you, but I can only do that if you join the Brat Pack and become one of us. All right, now before we get into the details of today's case, I first need to say a big thank you to the sponsor of today's video, and that is Aura. And I want to start this off with a question for you, and that is this. Have you ever Googled yourself or, somebody you love and found that there was way more of yours or their personal information on public listing sites than you are comfortable with? Well, it is far more common for your private information to get leaked out on the web, to get out on the interweb where anybody can see it. And that is because there are these things out there, these things called data brokers who are making dollar bills off of your personal information. They sell it to people you really don't want to have it, like spammers and robocallers. They can even find out where you live. I am not down with that sickness. I value my privacy and I value your privacy. And that is why I want to introduce you to Aura. Now, did you know that data brokers are legally required to remove your information if you ask them to? Sounds great, right? Well, here's the thing. There's a catch. There's a Shyamalan twist to this. And that is that they make it super difficult for you to figure out which data brokers have your information so you can reach out and submit those, requests to have it taken off. And that's where Aura comes in. Aura identifies which of those pesky data brokers have your information, and they submit the opt-out request on your behalf. They do all the work so that you do not have to. Now, when I first signed up for Aura, the very first thing I did is I went to the data broker opt-out section because I was just curious. I was like, okay, how many data brokers actually had my information? And it turns out like 30, and Aura had already submitted opt-out requests on my behalf. Thank you, Aura. They also do things like make sure your information hasn't been leaked on the dark web, which is very important. Nobody wants their information leaked on the dark web. And they make sure that things like your passwords, the passwords that you use for your online things like banking, things like that, things that are very, very important, they make sure those passwords are strong for you. And those are just a couple of examples of things that Aura does to help keep you safe online from threats that you just simply cannot see. Through just the Aura app, which is super easy to set up, you can get things like parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, identity theft insurance, and more. And you get it all in one place. There's no need for several different apps, and you get it all at one affordable price. It sounds like a great deal to me, but listen, I'm not your mom. I can't tell you what to do. What I can tell you is that I don't want people to exploit and profit off of your private information, and you don't have to let that happen. You can let Aura do the hard work for you by helping keep you safe online. And of course, I have great news for you today. Aura is offering members of the Brat Pack the opportunity to explore all they have to offer for free for 2 weeks through my link. So if all of that sounds as good to you as it does to me, make sure to go through the link in my description box, which is aura.com/Bratterstein, so they know I'm the one that sent you, to get your 14-day free trial and see if your private information has been leaked online. And if it has, let Aura help put a stop to it today. Now, I just want to say a big thank you to Aura for partnering with me on today's video. It's partners like Aura that make it possible for me to put out videos as consistently as I do. And a big thank you to you guys for always being so supportive of all of my sponsors. You rock. Don't ever change. All right, with that, let's go ahead and get into this case. So this video is on a case that I have known about for a while and I've wanted to cover for a while. So on my computer, I have like my YouTube folder, and inside my YouTube folder, I have separate folders for every case that I've covered. And I also have folders for cases that I want to cover that I just haven't gotten to yet, that are just, like I have my list of cases that you guys submit suggestions to, right? And then I take from that list and I make these folders, and these are the ones that I'd like to do sooner, right? Cool. Well, Serena's case has been on my computer. There's been a folder for it since January of 2022. And I just never felt like it was the right time to cover her story. It's just that something about Serena's case I knew was going to hit me a little more difficultly. Like I can usually look into a case and know if now's the time for it for me because I know where I am mentally, right? And what happened to her is just so terrible. It's so vicious. It's the type of thing that could happen to anybody, to any teenager who goes out and goes to a party, goes to hang out with friends, any person who leaves their house really, because she was attacked viciously at a place where she should have been safe. It should have just been a good time. It was a house party, and people stood around and watched as she cried and begged for them to stop, cried and begged for her life, and they didn't. They continued. They killed her, recorded it, and posted it online. It's just sad and horrifying. And today I'm going to tell you that entire story. I read all the things so that you did not have to. And at the end of this video, I want to ask you the question of the day. I'm going to give it to you now so you can have it bounce around in your brain as we go through the details of this case. But of course, I want you to answer once you have something to go on. But the question of the day is this. I actually have two. One, do you believe that Serena's killers should have been tried as juveniles or adults? And do you believe that their sentences were long enough? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below after we go through the details of this case. Now, with all that said, come gather around and let me tell you the story of the murder of Serena McKay. Our case today begins on April 23rd, 2017. It's just about 8 p.m. when a call comes in to the RCMP, which is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, because we're in Canada here, Mounties, if you will. They respond to a call from a woman who had said that she had found the body of a young woman in, help me here, Sage King. It's Sagekeeng. Sagekeeng, which is a small, tight-knit community of fewer than 3,600 residents that is about 100 kilometers or 62 miles, if you're from the U.S. like me, from Winnipeg. Basically, a woman had been outside when she stumbled upon the body of a young woman, and this girl was in bad shape. She was beaten. She was at least partially undressed. Some of her items had been stolen, and next to her were a pile of burnt-up identification cards. This woman who stumbled upon this body freaked out, was in total hysterics, ran to a neighbor's house, and this neighbor dialed, I don't think it's 911 because it's Canada, but they dialed the emergency number that led the RCMP to being, they called the RCMP. Now, when police received this call, it had to have been kind of a punch in the gut because this was not the call they were hoping to get. Because at the time that this call came in, they were actually out searching. Like, they had officers out searching for a 19-year-old girl. And that's because 2 hours prior to this call coming in, the family of Serena McKay had come in and reported her missing after she went out Saturday night and had not come home. So police arrive at the home where the body was found, like they called, gave an address. They arrive at this home. The woman leads them to the body. And it doesn't take them long to realize that this is, in fact, 19-year-old Serena McKay. But despite her condition, they ruled in that moment, they determined her death to be a suspicious death and not a homicide, which, in my opinion, is a choice. Well, not in my opinion. It is, by definition, a choice. But it did not take people long to realize that this was not the case, because as police are investigating this suspicious death and processing evidence, etc., there are two videos circulating around social media, Facebook specifically, that's where they were posted initially, that show the violent attack of Serena. And I do mean violent because I tried not to see these videos. I don't think it's necessary for me to see the videos of this girl being attacked to be able to tell her story. And I know her family wanted them scrubbed from the internet. But when I was doing my research, I did stumble upon the video and it played automatically. And I saw a couple of seconds before I was able to click away. And it's horrifying. You clearly see this girl with a bloodied face, completely outnumbered and unconscious. But we will talk more about the video a little bit later. But the point here is the video is circulating and people are realizing that this isn't a suspicious death. This is a murder. And within no time, the two teenage girls, 16-year-old Chrissy Jacobs and 17-year-old Lene Cook, were arrested for the attack. Now, let's go back. Let's talk about Serena. Let's talk about what happened that night. Then we'll talk about, the trials, the sentencing, the aftermath, all that jazz. Serena Chelsea McKay, who went by the nickname Serenity to those she knew and loved, was born September 30th, 1997, and she was born to a happy, strong family and a pretty decently sized family. She had one sister and three brothers, and she had her parents, her mother Dolores, and her father Harvey, though Harvey and Dolores were not together anymore at the time that Serena was killed. Her mother had remarried, and so she also had a stepfather named Roland, and the family lived in the city of Winnipeg, and they worked hard to provide for their children. Serena was said to be beautiful and friendly, the type of person who got along with everyone, so she had a lot of friends. She was smart, and she was the type of person who was compassionate to other people. She loved music and beauty, and she loved taking photos, and she loved traveling. She was super excited to travel. She wanted to see big, beautiful oceans in different places and exotic places, and she was super excited to start traveling after she graduated from high school, which was just 2 months away. A friend of Serena's said of her after she was killed, quote, "She loved to be around her friends. She was an innocent girl. She was happy all the time. She was a beautiful young lady. She didn't deserve this. It's very tragic." After graduation, she had plans to study law or to move up north and actually work with her father. Her and her father were very close, even though they didn't live near each other at this time. And they had spent a lot of time together when she was young, before, life happens, things happen. But when she was young, they would go out and they would go like hunting, and he taught her how to animal call, which is something that I don't know how to do. I don't live in a place where there's no animals up in Los Angeles, you know what I mean? Unless you're counting like a mountain lion, which there are those, but I don't want to call them to me. But she learned how to do animal calling, the skill of animal calling, from her father. And it's something that she continued doing throughout her life, even winning, I believe it was second place in an animal calling contest shortly before she was killed. To look at photos of Serena, you would just see a totally normal teenage girl, someone who struggled with angst and peer pressure, but was also just a good kid. She wasn't troubled. She wasn't a troublesome teen. She had a good home life, a close family. She was just like a good girl. And reportedly, she was also a good daughter, with her mother Dolores saying that Serena was her best friend and her only daughter, which might sound confusing because I did say that Serena has a sister. But from what I read, it appears that sister was from her father's side of the family, or maybe, perhaps, came from Roland when Roland and Dolores married. It wasn't clear who the sister was and how she came into play, but it did say specifically that Serena was Dolores's only daughter, which made the impact on her family, her death's impact on her family, that much more tragic. Now, I'm not educated enough or really at all in Aboriginal culture, though I am getting more interested in it recently because, fun fact, I found out that my bio dad was actually Native American, and I found out about his tribe, the name of his tribe, and all that. But I'm not going to pretend that I know about the dynamics and the little things that make it specific to the people involved in it, because who am I to say, being raised by a very white woman? But I will tell you what I know from what I learned in reading about Serena's case specifically. Reportedly, daughters are holy and sacred in Aboriginal cultures, where many cultures value men above all else. For Natives, it is the opposite. They are the family's lifeline. It's the daughters who carry their name and their blood into the future. So for Dolores, whose name ironically means, quote, many sorrows, losing her daughter was like losing her whole family. And it's just really sad because she thought her daughter would be safe. She thought that she had done the right thing for her daughter. So basically what happened here is, you may recall I said at the beginning that Serena and her family were from, and they lived in Winnipeg. That is true. But Serena had been sent to the Saskeen First Nation, which is a Treaty 1 First Nation in the Eastman region of Manitoba, Canada. And incidentally, something I read about this is a 2015 CBS analysis found that this area had the highest number of outstanding cases of missing and murdered Indigenous women. So this is where she was. Well, really, she lived in the nearby Pointview, Pine Falls community. But if you look it up, it's pretty much the same thing. And she wasn't there as a tribe member herself, but she was a guest of a family friend. Well, it was friends because it was a couple. She was staying with family friends so that she could go to school there. Her family thought in going to school there, she would get the best education. And they also thought it would be very valuable for her to still be immersed in her Indigenous culture. which she would get there. So that's where she was. She was there to finish school, and she was literally in the 12th grade. She was almost done. She was set to graduate, get her diploma, move on with her adult life when she was tragically killed. Now, let's move on and talk about what happened to her. Apparently, on the night of April 22nd, 2017, a Saturday, Serena had been at a party. It wasn't a big party or anything. There were like 7 people. They were just hanging out, drinking, listening to music, doing what teenagers do on a Saturday when they have nothing else to do. And of the 7 people there was obviously Serena herself and her 2 attackers, which was Chrissy and Lene. Lene? I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. But also, I don't care that much because she's a dick. But that's, moving on. Now, what caused the fight is unclear. There were reports that Serena had been aggressive during the party and that the fight basically started between her and Chrissy. But what the fight was over, that's where it's unclear because there's 2 different accounts. One is that the girls were fighting over alcohol. And the other one is that the girls were fighting because Serena was flirting with Chrissy's boyfriend. But either way, an argument breaks out and Serena ends up disengaging. She leaves, she goes into the bathroom, and Lene actually follows her and goes into the bathroom with her, trying to cool her down, trying to calm her down, because as she says, she didn't want a fight to break out. Anyways, the girls end up outside, Serena reportedly getting kicked out of the party, and a fight broke out, and it was videotaped. On the tape, you see Chrissy and Serena fighting. Well, you see Chrissy beating Serena. She hits her over and over until she gets her down on the ground and then continues to hit her. Meanwhile, you can see that she's surrounded by people who are like yelling at her and taunting her while she's on the ground. While Serena was on the ground, she cried. She tried to protect herself. She begged for the beating to stop. And she even ended up saying, quote, "I'm so sorry." But she was beaten until she was unconscious. And once she was unconscious, you do hear a guy that's at the party saying like, yo, Serena's done. Like, Serena is done, but Chrissy doesn't care. She proceeds to hit her over and over in the face. At some point, Lene decides that she wants to get in on this action too, and she decides to help Chrissy. Chrissy, a girl who's so pissed that she is heard on this video saying, quote, "I don't want to fucking see her alive." Okay? So Lene jumps in. Chrissy at this point holds Serena's arms down so that if she was awake, she couldn't protect herself, while Lene proceeds to stomp on Serena's face at least 6 times. And this is graphic, so if you want to skip like 5 seconds, go for it. But in the video, you can actually hear Serena's bones like cracking. Later, an autopsy revealed that Serena had 67 injuries to her body, dude. 19 to her head, 2 to her neck, 11 to her torso, and 35 to the rest of her body. After the fight, the 2 girls just went back into the house and went to sleep, locking the door behind them, reportedly to ensure that Serena didn't come back in after them. But Serena wasn't going to be coming back in after them. She was beaten into unconsciousness while she had been intoxicated, so she wasn't able to even move. She couldn't even move to get herself help, so she lay out there that night and essentially froze to death because her cause of death was reportedly due to blunt force trauma and hypothermia because she was left out there unable to help herself because she had been beaten so bad in sub-zero Canadian temperatures. And then the next day, her body would be found, and this was shocking to everyone. People who knew Serena and the people who found her body. Her family was obviously wrecked. Her mom said that she feels forever changed after losing her only daughter and her best friend. And she said she feels cheated because she never got to tell her daughter goodbye. She said she suffers from insomnia and depression and often finds herself just driving to Serena's grave to sit there and to grieve. Her mother said when she actually does get to sleep, when insomnia isn't plaguing her, she dreams of her daughter and she wakes up crying, wondering what her life would have been. And Serena's grandmother, Gloria, said that losing Serena left a permanent void in their family and that she feels like she's just been stabbed in the heart. And it wasn't just her family either. These things have such ripple effects. And like one of the women who found Serena said that she's been haunted ever since. Not by ghosts. I didn't mean haunted in that way, but just that like you can't imagine just how terrible what Serena went through, because she said that when she found her, at first she didn't even look human to her. She said that she barely slept because she couldn't stop seeing Serena that way, and said that for a while she couldn't even eat, or rather that when she did eat, food didn't even really have taste to her. There was also a bit of guilt there because one of the women who found Serena said that she had heard noise Saturday night. The night that Serena was killed, she had heard noises near her house, but she heard noises most evenings, so she didn't think much of it. And then at about 1 a.m., the noise stopped, so she just thought that it was a normal party, just normal kids having a normal party, no big deal. But she felt like she should have known, and she should have just like called somebody, told somebody. But I mean, at the same time, she didn't know she needed to. Classmates, two of the girls, because the girls went to the same school, mind you, they were shocked. They couldn't believe that Serena was gone, and they were just left sort of speechless. How someone that they saw so much, someone they saw every day, could be there 1 second and then just gone the next was beyond their comprehension. They tried to like grasp for a reason. The students and also the staff, like the principal, who incidentally is one of the first people who informed police about the video circulating on the internet after students came to him and told him about it. He was trying to make sense of what happened and came up with his own theory as to why the attack did happen. His name was Claude, Mr. Claude, and he said of this, quote, "After seeing what I saw in the video, you know what? There's nobody in their right mind that would do something like that unless they were extremely high on whatever and just like totally out of it." So he figured that drugs were involved. But it is worth mentioning, at least, in passing, that Serena's family put out a statement, or like on their Facebook page, they have a Facebook page for her, where they said that the principal is actually related to some of the people involved in the case, namely Lene. So, do with that what you will. But reasoning aside, kids that went to school with Serena and Chrissy and Lene were suffering. A healing ceremony took place, and there were grief counselors that were on the campus for like the whole week after she was killed. And they were there for anybody who just like needed somebody to talk to, because the tension in that place was like tangible. And I believe a lot of that was, of course, because Serena was gone. Just that would already make that such a heavy situation. But also, a lot of those kids had also seen what happened to her. And that was because of the video. The video, man. There were actually two videos. So there was one video that was 48 seconds long. And after that one went up, a shorter one popped up shortly after that. And people saw these, and these videos showed everything. They showed what the girls did. They showed Chrissy saying that she didn't want to see Serena alive. They showed Chrissy telling Lene to take over for her, and they showed Lene doing just that. The main video was taken on, I believe, Chrissy's phone, and she ended up texting the video to friends and sending it on Facebook Messenger to brag about what she did do, even going as far as having someone take a photo of her that she put on Snapchat that was taken right after the murder, even having the time displayed across the photo. And in this photo, she's covered in blood, smiling with her tongue out, along with the words, quote, "I been chillin'." And in her case, she was chillin' and killing, not chilling, not killing. Anyways, it shows Serena there being beaten, not trying to fight back, trying to protect her face. It shows her bloodied face, and it shows her arms being held down while her face was stomped on, all while people stood by and watched and did nothing to help her. It is disgusting. Now, in the beginning, even though it was pretty clear that the girl in this video was Serena, and those who knew her knew for sure that it was her, police came out and they said that they couldn't confirm yet who the girl in the video was, because they had their hands full. They were investigating the case, and they were trying to get the videos taken down off the internet, which getting something taken down off the internet is not an easy task. They were working with Crime Stoppers and with Facebook to have it removed, because like it did not need to be out there. People were even worried that people seeing this video could, be emboldened to do the same thing and further traumatize a community that was just working on healing. They did finally get it taken down after some back and some forth and several hours of the video being on the internet. They'd get one down, the other one would pop up. It was a whole thing. But Facebook just sort of said like they were having trouble locating the video, and that their thoughts and prayers were with the victim's family, that they were working with police, and they were just doing the best they could do. They were even working with the police to see if maybe the attack had been live streamed. There were a couple of reports about it being live streamed, and they wanted to see if that was the case. They could, They just wanted to check all the things, which is good. You should check all the things. But it's crazy that this is a thing that they'd have to check, because apparently it's a bit of a trend for people to kill other people or themselves on live stream, which I had no idea. But in researching this case, I went down a rabbit hole of other cases where people had done just that. And it's just kind of crazy that that's such a thing. But I definitely have digressed a little bit here. And, you know, they got to take it down as much as they could. It's still out there. As I said, I accidentally saw it myself years later. It's impossible to get something taken off the internet once it's out there. That's the problem. Like, you have to be careful what you post, because it's in the ether forever. And, you know, that's all they could do. They were able to determine the girl in the video was Serena, and they were just kind of shocked. They couldn't believe that so many young people could stand by while something like that happened, you know, to stand by, to see that level of brutality, to see her unconscious, and to not help her, right? Not only not help her, but film it and just do nothing. It's just unbelievable. That's the part that the chief of police said bothered him most, is that they just stood by and watched and didn't help her. And I agree. That's very, very just frustrating. Now, speaking of frustrating, let's talk about these two girls who did this to her and their reaction to learning that she had died. Chrissy freaked out and immediately texted Lene saying, quote, "She fucking died, bro." And then she immediately told Lene to lie. She told her that if police came sniffing around and asking questions, to say that yes, they had been in a fight with Serena and, you know, they had busted up her nose and she had bled quite a lot to account for any blood that was found, but that she was fine, that she left, that they kicked her out of the house, they closed the door, and she walked off, that they saw her leave, which, you know, would make sense considering her body wasn't found directly by that house. But Chrissy was freaking out. She said that she was so scared, and she said to Lene, quote, "Promise me you won't tell him I fought her deadly." So she knew what she did, and she knew that it was wrong because she knew that she needed to lie. And I feel like it got to her so fast. She had to have known that her goose was effectively cooked, because she cracked pretty quickly, and not even under like the pressure of being questioned. She just kind of turned herself in. The Monday after the attack, so she was attacked on Saturday night. Sunday it was coming out that it happened, right? And then Monday, so she's at school. She goes and she visits the guidance counselor, and she tells them what happened. And the guidance counselor quickly calls the RCMP, or Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP. That same day, Lene went to the RCMP station to give a witness statement. But at this point, Lene was still intent on lying and covering up what happened. So on the way to the station, she actually had contacted a friend to see if she could stop by her house to trade shoes. She wanted to take her friend's boots, and she did. She took her friend's boots and wore them to be interviewed by police, because she didn't want to be wearing the same boots that she had stomped Serena with when she was being questioned by police. But this friend, being a good person, did end up telling police about the boot swap. After the meeting, Lene and her boyfriend went to see another friend who had been at the party and asked this guy to lie to police and tell them that when he left, because he had left earlier in the evening, that Lene and her boyfriend had left at the same time. But I do not believe he gave them this alibi. So the boots were retrieved, the video was reviewed, and both Chrissy and Lene were arrested and charged with the second-degree murder of Serena McKay. Now, Serena's family was enraged, because though the two girls had been arrested, and that is a win, they were well aware that there were several people who were at the party, who were on the video, who could be heard in the background, who either participated or did nothing to help Serena when she was in that situation. So they wanted to get all of these people brought down. They were like, we're going to get as many people arrested, brought to justice as possible. And they even offered a $2,500 reward for a full list of the names of every person who had been at that party. I mean, when Serena was recovered, a bunch of her shit was missing, like her Gucci purse, her jewelry, and she was partially undressed. And I did not see it reported in any article, but those who love Serena said that she was staged after she was killed to look like it had been a robbery and sexual assault. They also said that not only did the two girls do this, but one of the guys who was present at the party had helped the two girls do this, though it is worth mentioning that no one else has been arrested in connection with Serena's murder. But that doesn't stop her family, because they said of this, and I quote, "There are so many more people involved. Murder has no statute of limitations, and new information can lead to an additional civil suit past the statute time." They even offered a $10,000 reward to anybody who would come forward and give a testimonial about what happened that night, to give it to police and give it to prosecutors so more people could be arrested. And I think they would have pushed this hard anyway, but I think part of the driving force there, besides the fact that Serena was gone, is that though her mother tried to avoid it, she did see the video of her daughter being attacked. She said she saw the video circulating, and one day she did just click it. She said of this moment, quote, "All I saw was my baby's swollen face." And after that, she had to click out. She couldn't watch the video any further because it was just too painful for her to see. It was just such a tragic event, and so many people were affected by this. There were vigils held for her, and more than one. There was one, at least one in Saking. Saking, the place. There was one in Winnipeg, and they were just out there in her honor. There was a sacred fire. There was dancing. There was singing, and there were thousands of people that showed up, and you could just feel the pain. Everyone could feel the pain of all the others around them. People wanted to be there for Serena, but they also wanted to be there for her family because it was such an impossible time for them. And people wanted them to know that they weren't going through this hellish experience all by themselves. They had a whole community processing this tragedy with them. And they were hoping that not only would this bring attention to Serena's case, which is obviously incredibly important, but also highlight the growing number of missing and murdered Indigenous women. And then there was Serena's funeral, which, as you can imagine, was incredibly heartbreaking. The service was held at the Westwood Community Church, and the whole service was meant to be all about love and remembering Serena. And people were remembering her now as an angel sitting with God on his throne. There was a slideshow during the service that showed Serena in all ages of life, but most recently a smiling teenager making, funny faces and sitting around a campfire with friends and cuddled up with her family. And her brother John and a good friend of hers named Veronica also got up in the front of the service and played songs and sang for her. An elder who came to Serena's funeral, who hadn't met her but was one of the first people to find her when she had died, said that coming to the funeral was sort of a way for her to see Serena in a different way, to see her, as a child and as a teenager, instead of just as that person she found that she's described as not even looking like a human. And she said of this quote, "I'm walking away now with images in my mind other than the finding of Serena. I now have visions of her as a toddler and the drum that was laid with her, and I was able to meet her mother and offer her the comfort. So I needed these for my healing as well." The service was definitely meant to be a celebration of life service, but that didn't mean that the evil that brought them there was ignored, because it wasn't. They talked about it, and they talked about the impact that it had and how it had an impact on everybody in the community, and how important it was for parents to sit down and talk to their kids and just stress to them the importance of protecting Indigenous women. The service ended with the pastor speaking about the importance of names in the Indigenous culture, and said that he knew that Serena would want them to have serenity. And I thought that was just such a good closing, and I just wanted to give this man his flowers because I thought that was just great. Or this woman. I'm not sure. This person, this was a good ending, I think, in my opinion. Okay, so the girls were arrested, right? And the prosecution, or the Crown, because we are in Canada, had a pretty strong case, right? They had the videotape. They had DNA evidence. Things were looking good. Now, something about this case, and something that made researching this case such a pain in the ass, is the fact that because both Lene, my brain just forgot her name for a second because it's kind of spelled like Leanne, but I think it's Lene. So Lene and Chrissy were both underage at the time that the murder was committed. So in the initial reporting, their names are not anywhere. They just call them underage something. I can't remember exactly, but essentially because they were underage, their names weren't in any of the initial reporting. So I had to sort through and try to figure out who they were talking about each time, which was a real pain in the ass. And then even by the time one of the girls, Lene, was sentenced, she was 18, but because she had been a minor when it happened, she was still protected. They were so protected, even though they did something so shitty. But also innocent till proven guilty. So I guess I understand, but at the same time, Now, initially the Crown said that they intended to try both girls as adults, but that didn't end up happening, which had an enormous impact on the sentences the girls would be up for getting, really, because Listen, because of the fact that they were minors and that they were going to be prosecuted as youth offenders, the maximum time they could get for second-degree murder would be 7 years. That's the max, 7 years. And it isn't even 7 years in custody. It's 4 years like in jail, and then 3 years of community community release. Essentially, they're released into the community and they're watched, and they do that for 3 years. So it's like parole, right? Where I'm from. I don't know where you're from. Parole, probation, it's that kind of thing, which is totally different because if they had been tried as adults, the minimum sentence for a second-degree murder conviction would be life in prison with the possibility of parole after 10 years. So they could still get out after 10 years, but at least they'd be in jail for 10 years. It may be longer. So now, even if they were found guilty, they were going to serve barely any time. Now, as I'm sure you can imagine, this prompted protests. Most notably was a rally that started at the legislature, and protesters walked up Memorial Boulevard and through part of downtown. This was organized by a 17-year-old girl, actually, who had seen the video and was completely taken aback by the brutality and the lack of justice. And Serena's mother, her family, her friends, and many people who didn't even know her participated in this walk, but it essentially did nothing. Serena's mother was not happy, obviously, but she was hoping and praying that the girls would at least get the max they could get, which would be, 4 years. I honestly can't believe it. But while holding a photo of her daughter surrounded by her family and her friends, she said, quote, "Nothing is ever going to be enough. Justice for Serena." Now, the girls did have separate court hearings, and there was a lot to it, but I will give you the gist, the essence, if you will. During the hearings, supporters of Serena wore ribbons, purple for peace and serenity, red for their passion and fight to honor Serena, and each pin held a different bead, a heart bead, a feather bead, or a gold, green, or sapphire bead. Each a color Serena loved and cherished, all while listening to the Crown describe the attack that, quote, not only shocked but disgusted an entire country, because so much of that country actually watched it happen. All because of those videos, man. And those videos were played in court, and before they were played in court, Serena's family got up and left. The Crown said of this murder, and I quote, "Serena's death has been shared across this country and beyond. The loss of this young woman cuts very deep in the lives of those she left behind." Now, let's go ahead and get into what happened with Lene first, because her hearing was first. Now, her attorney tried to argue that yes, Lene was involved in the beating, but that she wasn't responsible for Serena's death because the beating was not what killed her. Hypothermia was. He recommended that she serve just 1 year in jail and do the rest in community supervise. He said that while in jail, she was a model prisoner, despite the fact that she had a really tough upbringing and that she was not at risk of reoffending. She had been given a psychological evaluation. I think both girls were actually, and they determined that she had struggled with self-harm and substance abuse as a way to cope with her issues following her father's overdose, which took his life, and her experiences with sexual assault. She had become pregnant at 16 because, yes, Lene is apparently a mother and had left her child with her family that night to go to the party and had to drop out of school to raise her baby. Her attorney said that she had been acting recklessly, and yes, the beating was extensive and she should not have jumped in, but since then she has been doing what she can to make a better life for herself, make better choices, like ending a bad relationship and being a more meaningful mother to her young son. She did make a statement in court where she talked about how remorseful she was and talked about how she'd been having nightmares ever since the attack. And she spoke directly to Serena's mother, Dolores, when she said, and I quote, "There are no words to describe how sorry I am. This affects a lot of people. Dolores, I broke your heart. I can't imagine how much pain you are in and how much pain you had to go through." Now, the Crown disagreed, right? They said that though she's showing remorse now, she wasn't remorseful that night at all. She didn't show Serena any sympathy. She participated in the attack. She recorded the attack. She and her friends distributed videos of this attack, videos that spread so far that they cannot even be scrubbed from the internet. Videos that when played in court, when these girls, both Lene and Chrissy, when they saw what they had done, they sat in court and they cried. The Crown also pointed out that she wasn't taking any responsibility for what she had done, and she had been downplaying her part in the attack At first, she said that it was self-defense. Then she tried to hide what she did by switching boots with her friends so that the cops wouldn't see the boots she was wearing. And then she said that she had really wanted to call the police because she was worried about Serena, but her boyfriend had taken her phone. Now, let's talk about Chrissy. So like Lene, she was given a psychological evaluation and they looked into her past a little bit. They found that she came from a good family. She was raised by a loving and supportive mother, but in the months leading up to the murder, she had left her mom's home and she was sort of couch surfing in Sikkim, and she had been skipping school and drinking and doing drugs like coke and pills. Her attorney said that she was a panicked young woman who was having trouble adjusting to living in such a small community, and said that when she had her psych evaluation, she was diagnosed with both PTSD and a substance abuse disorder. He said that Chrissy had unresolved trauma from her past, which stemmed from instances in which she had been sexually assaulted, and that these experiences she had, this unresolved trauma, made her vulnerable to the events that happened that night. Which, listen, if what they're saying happened to her is true and she was sexually assaulted, that is absolutely fucking terrible. I'll never say that it's not. But to say that that made her vulnerable to beating a girl to death, then bragging about it and recording it, is a fucking reach. I hope her attorney stretched before he took that fucking leap. He said that Chrissy did not lead the attack, though it does seem like she did. He said that she did not record the video, that she did not share the video, though I believe that she did, and said that she never tried to hide what happened. As soon as she learned that Serena had died, she went and told the guidance counselor, and then her and her father went and turned her into the police. Now, as for why it happened and her excuse, she said that she was blackout drunk at the time of the murder and that she didn't remember anything that happened, that it just wasn't something she knew and not something she meant to do. But the defense was just kind of no, this girl came from a good family. She was raised to know right from wrong. She just chose wrong. She did try and show remorse. She said that she was so sorry and that she was filled with guilt and shame, and that she wanted to now live to do things in Serena's honor. And then she spoke to Serena's family directly when she said, quote, "I took what must have meant the entire world to you, Serena's gifted and blessed life. I can never be at peace with myself knowing what I've done. I despise myself every day for letting it get that far." Serena's family essentially said that no amount of apologies will ever matter because Serena is still gone and she'll be gone forever. Her mother said that she longs to hear her daughter's voice and she just wants to tell her that she loved her and that her daughter did not deserve to die. And man, many, many people were there to support Serena's family. The court there got so many victim impact statements from family, friends, people who didn't even know Serena, people who weren't even from the country. They had people as far away as California that were affected by Serena's death. On the National Day of Remembrance for murder victims at the California State Capitol in 2018, Serena's photo was presented alongside many others, and I believe hers was the only Canadian murder victim. I think hers was actually the only one outside the U.S. in the first place. And the reason that the judge probably got so many victim impact statements is because a rally was held where the people marched from the legislative grounds to the law courts, where the organizers urged anyone who saw the video of Serena being attacked to submit their own victim impact statement to the court, even if they had never met Serena. Dolores said that having all these people, strangers who had never met Serena, out there fighting for her was a heartwarming experience, and said specifically, quote, "Sometimes I feel alone in the way that I'm feeling, and it's inspiring that there's a lot of people that are supporting her and want the same that we do." She ended her statement to the media with a call of action, telling anyone who saw that video of Serena to submit their impact statement to the court, and even gave instructions on how to do so. So anyway, the judge got all the victim impact statements, and he or she had to make a ruling on which ones would be admissible, because I guess there was a new rule in Canada right around this time. I don't know Canadian law very well. I barely know American law, you know what I mean? But I guess there was a new rule in effect at that time where people could submit victim impact statements even if they didn't know the person who was killed, and that wasn't always the case. So the judge had to rule on which ones would be admissible, and in the end, all but I believe 9 were admissible. The judge had a lot to consider when it came to making a decision about what would happen to these 2 girls, because the judge had seen the brutal attack on video and said that they agreed with the Crown in their determination that Chrissy and Lene were responsible for Serena's death, not the hypothermia. It was their fault. And the judge actually said that after seeing that video, they were ready right then to put both girls into jail for the max and challenged anyone who had seen that video to question that decision. But even though that was the gut reaction of the judge still had factors to consider. So let's go ahead now and start with Lene. Lene, as I said, was charged as a youth, and she ended up actually pleading guilty to her second-degree murder charge. Though, as I said, the judge's gut reaction was to give her the max, they did have to consider her traumatic past, her father's death, her family's history of residential schooling, and her own battle with substance abuse, plus her likelihood of reoffending and lack of prior criminal record or issues in school. With that, Lene was given the max of 4 years in jail, less the amount of time that she had already been in jail awaiting trial, so just over 3 years, and just 2 years of community, like supervised community release. The judge told Lene, like, what you did to Serena was brutal. Her life was ended by a brutal assault, and that clearly Serena's life meant nothing to her. And the judges said that they were so shocked that she could do something like this and then be able to just shake the images from her head much easier than even the judge was able to. Now, Chrissy, seen as the instigator, the person who led the charge in this murder. Both the Crown and the defense actually agreed that they wanted Chrissy to serve the max, but they had differences on how they wanted that to be served. The Crown wanted her to serve 4 years in jail, the full 4 years in jail, and have the full 3 years in supervised community release. But the defense was like, how about instead we just give her 1 year and then have her do the rest on supervised community release? That would be better because she's super remorseful, dude. The Crown said that although when evaluated, they found that Chrissy had the moral capacity of an adolescent and was prone to poor decision-making, the videos clearly showed, quote, an adult woman full of rage beating on a helpless victim. They also noted that after committing this like vicious assault, she took a photo and bragged about it, sent out the video and bragged, man. She literally told her friend that she had, quote, stomped Serena out. And the Crown's attorney said of Chrissy, quote, clearly you have no mercy. You were even bragging about what you did. But the defense, of course, disagreed, saying that Chrissy was a scared and panicked young person who got herself involved in a very serious matter. Now, after everybody, said their piece, spieled their spiel, the judge needed some time to consider everything. And this was very difficult for Serena's family to have to sit and wait. And her mother said of this quote, I'm a little disappointed, but I know he has a lot to consider and that this is going to be a precedent-setting case. And like I told him in my victim impact statement, the world is watching. The judge did come back with a decision and said that the murder was horrific, a reprehensible act of astonishing cruelty, and that it was difficult for the judge to even charge and sentence Chrissy as a youth, but that she hadn't shown adult behavior when she committed this crime. Chrissy pled guilty to manslaughter, so not second-degree murder, and she was given just over 40 months in jail, which is just over 3 years, with 2 years of supervision. Now, this caused an eruption in the courtroom. Serena's stepfather, Roland, started to yell, which caused them to have to bring in extra security to make sure everything would be okay. And other members of Serena's family just yelled out, no justice, to the courts because they didn't get justice here. I don't think that's justice. Serena's family was just very upset. They were upset that the girls were given leniency because of the fact that they had been drinking when the murder was committed, that had sort of diminished their responsibility. And they were of the mindset that you being intoxicated should not get you any leniency when it comes to you doing something like that while you are drunk, which I agree. I think that that's insane. Serena's mother said that she knows her daughter is in a better place, but that this whole situation has been a nightmare because how is she supposed to replace her only daughter? Dolores did say that she's pleased with the sentences that the girls got, considering this was basically the max that they could get, but was just shocked that this was the max that they could get. It just felt like a slap in the face. They were shocked. She was shocked that these two murderers could get basically the same amount of time that her son, Serena's brother, got for robbery. And this was with the same judge, mind you. And even though their sentences were so low, one of the girls would try and get out early. So it looks like in 2020, Lene, who would have been 20 at this time, so 2020, she would have been 20, tried to get early release so that she could enroll in the University of Manitoba. She was said to have taken steps to remove negative influences from her life and was trying to make good choices in jail, even being involved in a program in jail that offers support to Indigenous offenders. She completed high school. She had a job in the laundry facility in jail and was said to be a role model for other prisoners. But her whole time there wasn't spotless. She had gotten in trouble for, I guess, like trying to forge a staff member's name on some document to get some mail released. She was caught tattooing herself. She was part of a group of people who were like defying lockdown orders, and she got in trouble for like refusing to take medication. A progress report from a probation officer also said that she is still, quote, easily misled by others and, quote, struggles with self-acceptance and will give up her own values to gain acceptance from others, which arguably is how she got in this situation in the first place. Now, the judge who initially sentenced her for the murder had the pleasure of rejecting this request to be released early. Well, I don't know if it was a pleasure for them. I would imagine it would be a pleasure. It's a pleasure for me to know that it was rejected because the judge said that they did not believe that Lene appreciated the significance of her consequence here. Which, I mean, hello, she was sentenced in 2018 and in 2020 she's trying to get out. I think it's clear that you would need a little more time to appreciate the seriousness of this. So that was the last update I saw on those two girls, but I feel like by this time they have to be out, right? Yeah, 2024. They were sentenced in like 2018, something like that. So they would have to be out, and they're probably in community, either supervised or unsupervised by this point. And I just have to imagine what that's like for Serena's family to know. But let's move on past these two girls and talk about Serena and talk about tributes made for her, because truly she is what matters here. A man named Alan, who was a 12th grade teacher at the school that Serena was going to, like, remember she was staying in St. Kings so that she could go to school. Well, this guy was a 12th grade teacher at that school. And also he and his wife were the couple who Serena was staying with while she went to school so that she could graduate. Well, he said that he thinks about Serena every day, that he keeps a photo of her on his desk, and that he was in the process of trying to raise funding to build a healing and sweat lodge on the campus in Serena's honor. He said that he saw this as a place of prayer where people could freely talk and get teachings, open up about whatever they're going through, connect, and hold traditional ceremonies. He felt that it could be a useful outlet for these kids to avoid something like this ever happening again. Now, I don't know the cultural significance of a sweat lodge specifically. If you do, please let us know in the comments below. But I do think that any place where these kids can go to open up and feel safe doing so would be a great and positive thing. In addition to the sweat lodge, there was something else, and this will break your heart. At least it broke my heart a little bit. And it's because, okay, you remember how Serena was set to graduate just months after she was killed? Well, when the 2017 class walked across the stage, the class that Serena was supposed to be a part of, the graduating class, there was a chair in the center of the stage draped in a red cap and gown, the same color as the shirts that her family and friends wore to her murder trial, because red is supposed to be representative of missing and murdered Indigenous women, and this chair was there in Serena's honor. On top of the gown was, again, a graduation cap, and there was also a sign with Serena's name, and this was an idea that was brought on by the students and supported by the staff. In addition to that, Dolores was also given a posthumous diploma for her daughter. I know that that's not how you say that word, but I can never get it out, but it basically just means, you know, like given after she died. So she was given a diploma for Serena, and it was the first diploma given out during the ceremony, and she was also able to keep the outfit that she would have worn, which I believe they're referring to the cap and gown, and she was given a graduation ring for her daughter. The school also created a $1,000 reward in Serena's honor. It goes to a student who participates in the arts and humanities, which are two things that Serena really loved. So I just thought that was very sweet, something to do for her, because Serena's death really affected so many people in the community across the country, and it even crossed borders, you know. It's just such an absolute tragedy and a senseless case. She was just like such a good girl. How could they beat her like that and then just leave her there to die? I really don't get it. And not just those girls, but all the people that were standing around watching, come on, guys, do better. Let's do better. Let's be better. Let's be what Serena would want people to be. Let's have what Serena would want people to have. Serenity. And with that, my friends, is the story of the horrible murder of Serena McKay. I hope you found my telling to be informative. I hope I gave you every bit of information you would want when looking into this case. And I just want to thank you for hanging out and remembering Serena with me today. Now, considering everything I told you throughout this video, I'd like to revisit the question or questions of the day, and these are them. They are this. They go as follows. 1. Do you think that Lene and Chrissy should have been tried as juveniles or adults? Because I know that they are technically underage, but they were almost of age. And sometimes we see like people much younger, at least in the US, being tried as adults. And I'm curious what you think when it comes to the two of them. And do you think that they should have gotten longer sentences? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. I feel like there will be some opinions here. Before you leave, please don't forget to leave me a comment down below with whatever case you'd like to see me cover in the future. As you know, I have a long list of cases, and whenever you leave me a case suggestion, I put it on my list with your name next to it, so if I cover it, I can give you a shout out. I know. I love looking into the cases you guys suggest because they're often cases I haven't heard of or cases that need more coverage, and I know you're filled with great ideas and great taste. Otherwise, you would not be here. Sorry, I forgot my outro for a second. It is 11:55 p.m. I started filming this at 2. It's great. I love it. Oh, of course, if you haven't already, please don't forget to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing the bell. I almost forgot to say that. I put out new videos every single week, and I'd love to hang out with you. Yes, you, specifically you, but I can only do that if you join the Brat Pack and become one of us. One of us. One of us. One of us. And if you want to hang out more consistently, all my social media is listed down below, along with a link to my membership and a link to my merch store. And now, with all of that said, I just want to thank you for being here when you could literally be anywhere else in the world. That is tight. You are tight. Please stay safe and be a better person than you were yesterday, and I hope to see you in my next video.